In this gathering, I will shed some light on the sacrifices of Indian Muslims for freeing India from the clutches of British. The onslaught of Europe on India started with the Portuguese pirates in 17th century. But it was heightened when the Englishmen of East India Company, disguised as traders, established bases with an eye on India's wealth and land. Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dahlavi was the first person who apprehended the danger. He chalked out a plan of complete revolution. Shah Waliullah's various books reflect his thought and propound a complete framework. Shah Waliullah is the front runner of this field. Later, his son and pupils forwarded his mission. Meanwhile, the company began to expand its area. It resulted in a fierce fight between the company and Siraj-ud-Daulah in Palasi, Bengal in 1757. Siraj-ud-Daulah was defeated and the door was opened for Britain to occupy Bengal. Afterwards, Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan stood up to stop English steps in southern India. But this campaign suffered a major setback due to eternal tragedy, and Tipu Sultan was martyred fighting in Sarangapattam in 1799. The English general then climbed up his dead body and shouted, "From today India is ours, from today India is ours." Finally, one day in 1803, the Mughal king in Delhi was forcibly asked to sign a treaty that read, "The people for Allah, the country for the king, His Majesty, the order for the company." Meanwhile, Shah Abdul Aziz, who was observing the situation very carefully, issued a fatwa saying that India has turned into a Darul Harb, non-Muslims country. Muslims must wage war against the British. But the ground was not prepared to start any revolutionary movement. So Sayyid Ahmad Shahid, a disciple of Shah Abdul Aziz, with his companions migrated to Kandahar in Afghanistan in search of a land from where he can run a revolutionary movement. Unfortunately, the greatest militant movement of this subcontinent suffered sedition of Afghans and finally collapsed. The remaining people, especially the ulama Sadiqpur, continued their mission inside India. Dear audience, the sparks of hate and anger burst again in 1857. This time it was not a mutiny of a group, but a mass revolt against the English throughout the country. In Shamli, Indians revolted in the leadership of Haji Imdadullah while they were fighting in Lucknow and Faizabad under the command of Begum Nawab and Maulana Ahmadullah. Meerut and Delhi were the centers where Indian army men were fighting for Sultan Bahadur Shah Zafar. The revolt continued for months, but the Indians were defeated in the long run. It is noteworthy that the caravan of freedom was led purely by Muslims till 1857. Since the power was snatched from Muslims, so they were naturally the first enemies of the alien government. According to historians, 27,000 Muslims were only hanged to death. Shah Zafar was exiled to Rangoon and his descendants were finished off. After the defeat of 1857 revolution, the Muslim leaders changed their strategy. They started setting up educational institutions across the country to combat the disastrous British policies. On the foremost of them was Maulana Muhammad Qasim Nanotwi and his colleagues established Darul Ulum in Dewan to produce a team of ulama who could fight eyeball to eyeball with the British government. The first student of Darul Ulum Dewan, Maulana Mahmud Hassan, known as Sheikhul Hind, chalked out a plan known as Reshmi Rumal Tahrik, Silken Letter movements. Sheikhul Hind had a secret agreement with the Ottoman Caliphate of Turkey to attack on British bases in India and prepare ground for revolt. But this plan also was sabotaged. Consequently, he was arrested and sent to Malta Island. Dear audience, as the First World War erupted, the Indian subcontinent was resounding with the slogans of Khilafat movement. Until this time, no prominent leaders from other communities in field. Because of the World War, the global scenario changed and the other Indian communities got up from their long slumber. Sheikhul Hind, when released from Malta, was supposed to get down in Bombay. Gandhiji was amongst those who came to receive him. Then Muslim leaders elected Gandhiji as leader. Since Hindu in majority, so it was necessary to win their favor to oust the English. Around 1919, the Jamiat leader, the Jamiat Ulama Hind, came into being to provide a Muslim a platform to fight against the English. It is worth mentioning that it was Jamiat which taught the Congress to follow the path of freedom. Otherwise, it was not founded with sole purpose of independence. The Jamiat leaders worked closely with Congress and inspired it to adopt complete freedom program. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad was the hero of India's independence. Through his writing, particularly historic newspaper Al-Hilal and Al-Balagh, he heated up the subcontinent with the slogans of freedom. He headed the Congress, especially in the most crucial time during the Second World War and afterwards. It was continuous pressure and wise policy of the Congress under his leadership that materialized the dream of freedom in shorter period. Dear audience, these are some brief extracts from the history of freedom. Otherwise, the sacrifices that Muslims have offered to free India from British slavery cannot be described in a short speech. The most important thing is that Muslims were pioneers in freedom fighting, and only they carried it till 1900. And Hindu leaders appeared long after them, and Muslims walked shoulder to shoulder with them till the country became free, and Muslims had always held high torch of patriotism and freedom fighting. Today, it is tragic enough that Muslims are blamed that they are traitors. Muslim fighters, instead of being paid homage, are removed from history, textbook and government. While many in Hindu community think that Muslims have got their share in the form of Pakistan, but they forgot, still India has more Muslims than Pakistan and other countries except Indonesia. Dear audience, the purpose to mention these sacrifices is to remind you your brave past, since it is said, a nation which fails to treasure its history is lost in the darkness of time. Such a nation has nothing that inspires it to face new threats with courage and determination. May Allah keep Muslims of India safe and prosperous, and may India be the most powerful and most peaceful place in the world.